So the pole position at 1:21.409, a drying track yesterday. Predicted race pace based on what we saw over the 15 laps from Adventure Sprint winner Jorge Martin, around a 1:21.4. But this is a journey into the unknown in many respects, because there was rain disruptions on Friday, rain disruptions yesterday as well. So the riders certainly have not had the prep time that they would normally have liked coming into this 30-lap Grand Prix of Germany, as Ducati continue to try and continue their domination of MotoGP. They're going for their 4th podium lockout of the season. Termas, of course, kicked off this golden run, and they've locked out the top 3 in our last 2 feature races in France in Le Mans and in Italy in Mugello. Some profile just saying from down on the grid that maybe Aleix Espargaro taking a last-minute and 11th-hour gamble on the soft rear tyre as he tries to fight his way through early on that one from the back of the 3rd row as it stands now. If he does get through, he's going to have to go into time management mode, isn't he, pretty quickly. Race winner here then, 1 year ago. Who would have thought, fast forward 12 months, that was the last time we saw this man stand on the top step of a Grand Prix podium. The last time that he actually led a Grand Prix was right here in the Sachsenring 1 year ago. An all-French one too, of course, with fellow Frenchman John Zarco fighting his way through to the runner-up spot.
And the possibilities aren't exactly high that Fabio Quartararo is going to change that today. Of course, coming from the 11th on the grid, Fabio Quartararo just that sole podium this season back in Austin, and that was from a season's best qualifying the only time this year when he's started inside the top 7 on the grid. But it's really going to be crucial for Jorge Martin to try and make up ground early on in this race. You could argue he was helped slightly in the sprint yesterday by Jack Miller getting to the front of the race and just keeping Pecco Bagnaia boxed in a little bit. If Bagnaia can hit the front early, he'll be keen to try and put as much time into Martin if the sprint winner does find himself stuck in a little bit of early traffic.
Jorge Martin's had that special winning feeling here in Sachsenring previously, before a double winner in the Red Bull MotoGP Rookies Cup all the way back at the start of his career in 2013 and 2014. Moto3 winner here in 2018 ahead of Marco Bezzecchi, one of his rivals here this afternoon. And of course yesterday, a sprint winner here at the Sachsenring. But he wants the big one. He wants the 25 points and a first Grand Prix in the Premier Class victory of 35 since Austria 2021. The fans are enjoying life in the Sachsenring sunshine. This is the one that they've all come to see, although the man they all came to see if he could extend that golden run of 12 successive victories in 12 starts here at the Sachsenring. Marc Marquez on the Repsol Honda, unfortunately sidelined after this morning's bruising 4th gear high side going through turn number 7, his 5th spill of the weekend. Marquez opting does not feel ready to race, probably mentally and physically, for this 30-lap Grand Prix, so he will sit it out. So then, Jack Miller, 3rd in yesterday's 15-lap sprint. He goes from the back of that front row of the grid on the factory KTM. Luca Marini on the Mini VR46 Ducati, a career best starting position for the 25-year-old Italian. He goes from 2nd alongside compatriot Pecco Bagnaia. 21 points clear in the World Championship. The race winner 7 days ago, Mugello. Is there more brilliance from Bagnaia here in Germany? Welcome back to Germany. Good afternoon, everyone. We are set for the 30-lap German Grand Prix. A Saxon ring stunner coming your way. Without the Saxon King, though, unfortunately. 8 times world champion, a race winner here on 11 occasions on his last 11 minutes. Marc Marquez sadly ruled out through injury. The 8 times world champion suffering a 5th high-speed crash of his crash-strewn weekend here at his beloved Saxon ring, and taking the very difficult decision to withdraw from this German Grand Prix. We were all expectant, as a crowd of nearly 100,000 fans who, when they bought their tickets, were probably expecting to see Marc Marquez firmly in the fight for German Grand Prix glory once again. Multiple MotoGP winner here, twice a Moto2 winner and in Moto3. But Marc Marquez is sidelined from this German Grand Prix. Warm-up lap underway then, slightly depleted 19-rider field, with Taka Nakagami now left on his lonesome as the HRC representative, with, of course, Dramby and Alex Rins already sidelined from this Saxon Grand Prix. It's all eyes, though, is it, on the Donald Ducati. Pecco Bagnaia leads the front row, 4 poles in his last 5 races. He is trying to stretch his 21-point world championship lead going into the Dutch TT in Assen next weekend. 21 points clear of sprint winner Jorge Martin. Look at that, we had a record Sunday crowd, didn't we, of 116,000 fans in Le Mans. Nearly 100,000 fans here on race day, over 230,000 fans at a weekend crowd as well. The buzzing atmosphere, a special atmosphere. MotoGP as alive and kicking, isn't it, in 2023. We are seeing fantastic crowds once again in this year's World Championship. There is your championship standings then. Pecco Bagnaia, 140 points going into this 30-lap Grand Prix of Germany. This time last year, when we left the Saxon ring after his crash ahead of Fabio Quartararo, everybody was saying, no way Pecco Bagnaia can win the World Championship now. He was 91 points adrift, wasn't he? Quartararo this Grand Prix. As we come there 12 months later, everybody's saying, he can't lose to him this year. What will unfold, though, over the next 40 minutes or so as the riders come to the grid for what we hope will be a sensational Saxon ring German Grand Prix. Marc Marquez, which is a real blow for Honda and a real blow for the near 100,000 strong crowd. As Fabio Quartararo won here last year, will we see a new name as a race victor here at this historic venue? The German Grand Prix, lights out, full throttle, and we are underway. Luca Marini got a good launch on that. It's Jack Garagay who just rockets away on that factory K-Tim. He's got the inside line, he hugs that tight line as well. We're not world leaders, they drop down the hill going through the Amiga section. Bagnaia squeezed the Marini out wide, he takes 2nd place.
Martin away well, he's up into 4th place from the inside line into the first corner. We've got the inside of Brad Binder and Luca Marini. Joan Zarco's down to 7th place, so he's not gone away well either.
Bezzecchi into P6. Brad Binder inside that top 5. Further down there, Bastianini slipped down to 12th place. This is on the grandstands. What a shot that is as the fans are on their feet, hands in the air. They are looking at the field, sweeping through the high-speed turn, taking that 4th gear, 161 kilometres an hour. That's where Marc Marquez had his big crash this morning in the warm-up, which has ruled him out of this German Grand Prix. Miller's getting on with this early on, isn't he? Already through the 2nd split, and he's 3 tenths clear of Bagnaia.
John Zarco is trying to get on with it further back. He's trying to get on with it. He's got a nice sparkle behind him, who is on that soft rear tyre.
Just like we saw in the sprint yesterday, though, Miller just can't get that KTM hooked up, coming through turns 10 and 11. He led going into turn 11 on this opening lap, but he's been pushed all the way back down to 4th place. A Ducati barrage came on through. Bagnaia, Marini and Martin just eased past the Australian. That was a real tough third sector there for Miller. His problems seem to have returned from the sprint.
So the KTMs are 4th and 5th over the line. Then it's Aleix Espargaro, who's right behind them on that soft rear tyre, making it work in these early stages. Look at Binder trying to go around the outside of Jack Miller, but it's back as we were in the sprint yesterday with Bagnaia and Martin at the front. Although, of course, it's the reigning world champion who leads us this time.
So Bagnaia just where he wanted to be. Is this going to be the picture for the remainder of 2023? Potentially building up here as a championship toss-up between Bagnaia and Martin at the front of this Grand Prix. Alex Marquez trying to squeeze on the inside of Marco Bezzecchi there through that tight turns 5 and 6. They drop downhill then through the 4th gear turn number 7. Bagnaia with clear track ahead of him. Quarter of a second clear for the first half of this second lap ahead of sprint winner Martin.
Early moments, important early moments you feel for Brad Binder here. You feel he's the quicker of the two KTMs. He's certainly all over the back of Jack Miller. He doesn't want to let this leading trio of Ducatis get away and, of course, come under any pressure from behind. We're riding on board with Marini. Look how close he's punching up as Alicia Spargaro gets involved with the KTMs.
Alicia Spargaro, good spot by Simon pre-race. He did go late on for that soft rear tyre. So did Fabio Quartararo, two-time contenders from last year, trying to make that extra soft grip work at the start of this Grand Prix, which they need to do. Of course, they'll have to be wary of the durability and the endurance of those soft rear tyres, but Alicia Spargaro making it pay right now. He's up to fit.
Here comes Brad Binder then coming back through on Alicia Spargaro. It's really bunching up behind him, isn't it? As Alicia Spargaro tries to come back through, Bezzecchi's getting embroiled in a battle there. He just lost the place to Zarco. I think Alex Marquez is also through on Marco Bezzecchi down to 9th place.
Just a block pass there, wasn't it, from Binder? Nothing that Alicia Spargaro could do. Hard to move that first corner was Brad Binder's KTM. He saw Alicia Spargaro just have to check up there, didn't he, on the factory Aprilia. Back at the front there, back at Bagnaia. 6 podiums in 7 sprints, trying to continue his golden run as well in this German Grand Prix. Looks like Bagnaia and Martin have started to stretch away. They'll have near to Jack Miller on this opening lap then. He's just flicked it hard right, 5th gear. Down the hill, look, he lost the rear, didn't he? That's the reason why then Jack Miller, just that wheel spin as he was desperately trying to make sure that the Ducatis behind him weren't able to attack him on the brakes into turn number 12. That's exactly what happened. Here comes Martin then. He's going to hit the front for the first time, just as he made the move here on Bagnaia and Miller in the sprint yesterday. Turn 12 is his favourite overtaking off spot. And now Martin picks up the baton. He leads here at the Sachsenring, about to complete lap 3.
Danger signs then for Bagnaia, because once Martin got past him yesterday, and Bagnaia didn't really see him again in the remainder of the sprint. Martin sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Half second quicker than Bagnaia, of course. He went from a quarter of a second behind to a quarter of a second ahead. Bagnaia needs to keep him in view and also make sure he doesn't allow Luca Marini to come through as well.
Shades of 2022 here. It was Fabio Quartararo that made the early running, and Pecco Bagnaia dumped it, didn't he, behind him in that first corner. Crash which left him 91 points behind in the World Championship. That's Zarco on the inside of Alicia Spargaro in the Omega corner. So the premium flying Ducati man, seeing his teammate Jorge Martin hit the front for the first time, he's eager to try and work his way now back into podium contention. Zarco up inside the top 6.
Well, we know Zarco tends to get stronger as the race goes on, so he'll feel in a good position there in 6th place. But Luca Marini looks like he's ready to make a move on the reigning world champion. Pecco Bagnaia already halfway around this lap has fallen half a second adrift of Jorge Martin. It's turning into a similar story from the sprint. Bagnaia at the moment does not have the pace to go with Jorge Martin.
History is repeating itself. Martin hit the front of the sprint on lap 4 yesterday. He's done the exact same thing here in the main Grand Prix. Binder on the inside of Jack Miller, sliding that KTM down here, that 3rd gear, turn number 12. Now Miller trying to respond and just compromise his exit there a little bit, didn't he, Brad Binder? They all bunch up behind the South African. What this is doing, of course, is giving the top 3 the chance to stretch away at the front. Martin again, just as he did in the sprint yesterday. Once he's hit the front, he gets the hammer down, gets his head down, and starts reeling off 2 or 3 fastest laps. A 1:21.342, quickest man on circuit, over 4 tenths ahead of Bagnaia in 2nd.
Alex Marquez and Marco Bezzecchi once again going side by side there into turn 1. Behind them is Quartararo on the Yamaha in 10th. He's ahead of an Bastianini who's not made progress. In fact, he's lost the place to the 2021 world champion off the line. Then it's Oliveira who's got through on Maverick Vinales, who's still not making any progress this weekend. I feel like every time I look at the screens, Maverick Vinales is down in 13th.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the Top Gun firing blanks in Mugello last weekend in Aprilia's home Grand Prix. It's been a tough Sachsenring weekend as well for Vinales. He crashed out of the sprint, his first sprint DNF yesterday, but he was nowhere near the point scoring places. Now then Bagnaia just starting to stretch his legs and move away from Marini, who drops down through the 5th gear, turn number 11. His problem now is trying to work out what to do and how to deal with Jorge Martin ahead of him. He did find nearly a couple of tenths in that 3rd sector. Yesterday, Martin reigned supreme in sector 2. Last night, Bagnaia's homework was going to be pouring over Martin's dangerous. Bezzecchi raids on the inside of Alex Marquez in turn 13. Bagnaia had a good look yesterday, didn't it, Martin, through the sector 3%. He's able to turn so much better What did Bagnaia learn from studying those laptops last night inside that factory Ducati garage? Martin then leads over the line by 6.5 tenths.
The rider who made the move on that lap was Binder, who did his personal best lap of the race on 1:21.3. He was quicker than the trio ahead of him, so Binder, having got clear of his teammate Miller, does appear to have the pace to run at the front of this race. He's currently 1.5 seconds off the lead, but currently the fastest rider on circuit.
Yeah, Johan Zarco was briefly up into 5th place as well, wasn't he? Well, he is in 5th right now, although he's having a good exchange with Miller. He's just lost that 5th spot in the first sector. You just wonder, this lost time might be putting paid to Zarco's podium actually. A long way to go, and he is so adept, isn't he, at time management in the second half of the races, but at the moment you can see Brad Binder starting to streak away. He's got to find a way through quickly. Well, he did a hard move on Binder on the KTM in turn number 11. He's now dishing out some more pain to KTM through that turn number 11. It's clean this time around. No contact between him and Miller. Zarco on the Australian, who's struggling for pace at the moment.
Miller's got no answer, particularly there through turns 10 and 11. This is turning into a similar story from Mugello, isn't it? Where Miller was pretty competitive early on, but fell backwards. Bezzecchi now finally starting to come into play in this Grand Prix. He's through on the fast starting Malaysia Spargo. So Bezzecchi now back up into 7th place, but he is 3 seconds off the race leader despite his personal best lap last time around.
That was Bastianini up the inside of Fabio Quartararo going into first corner. He looked like he was a little bit wide. He was just using a bit of poke now. Ducati was down the short 700-metre start-finish straight. Quartararo trying to tough it out with the beast there. Into the Omega corner we go. You can just hear Quartararo just feathering the throttle just through this very tight and twisty first sector. A trademark characteristic of this Saxon ring layout. That is a battle at the moment that's raging for 10th place. Not where we thought Quartararo and the beast would be battling at the Saxon ring pre-season.
So far halfway around this 7th lap, Martin is continuing to manage that lead at around 7 tenths of a second, although Bagnaia, after that initial explosion of pace from Martin, has been able to stabilise it somewhat. He's able to match Martin now. Bagnaia set his personal best lap last time around at 1:21.3. It was near enough the same lap time for him. Martin is right on board now with Bezzecchi, adding more pain for Jack Miller.
Yeah, Miller's getting a mauling here, isn't he, unfortunately? Although he goes back through, that was a hard move. Making that sweep on the inside of the Australian to turn 12. He just got pushed slightly wide, didn't he, there, Bezzecchi? Trying to break as late as he possibly could. It just pushed him slightly off the optimum racing line, and Miller said, thank you very much. He's back on through. Johan Zarco, then, having finally got through on Miller, he's got the hammer down. The 2 fastest men on the circuit right now are the Prima Pama Ducati colleagues. Martin initially set the fastest up on the race, 1:21.302, but just 2.5 seconds later, that was immediately bettered by Zarco. On your screens there, as you can see, a 1:21.265. That's only a fraction away outside of the best race that we've ever seen here in the Saxon Ring.
Yeah, we could soon see a scenario where the group behind Martin could all close up together. Bagnaia, Marini, Binder and Zarco. The latter 2 of those, Binder and Zarco, are quicker than the pair up ahead of them. Those are the gaps on the left-hand side of your screen as we watch them now from the aerial shot. Here is Martin then, who halfway around this lap is still 3/4 of a second off the road from Bagnaia. Of course, it was a role reversal in Mugello last time around where Bagnaia just kept that lead at around half a second for around the first half of the Grand Prix, and the longer it wore on, Martin just couldn't match the pace of Pecco Bagnaia. Is it going to be a role reversal here at the Saxon Ring?
Going to keep a very close eye on the progress of Zarco now. Then on that 7th lap, he was nearly 2.5 seconds behind Jorge Martin. Going to really fascinating to track his lap times now with a bit of clear air in front of him as he starts to really reel in Brad Binder.
He's already put 3/10 out of Binder on this lap of Zarco. He really is coming into this Grand Prix. Bagnaia previously the fastest lap of the race. Vinales is out. Zarco sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, but boy, is that an image that sums up Maverick Vinales this weekend.
Well, he was out of podium contention here 1 year ago with a failed rear ride device, wasn't he? And there's more technical gremlins and more woes as smoke pours out as Maverick Vinales' factory Aprilia. And that's his hopes of any points in this Grand Prix over, ruined, wrecked by another tech issue then for that Aprilia RSGP. As you mentioned, last year it was a rear ride height device, and Vinales has a good long look over his right shoulder and sees that puff of smoke coming out of the side of the Aprilia. I'm sure Simon's going to have a quick close look at that one down in pit lane as Vinales just cruises rather dispensably back into the pit lane of the Aprilia garage. There he is. Second time we've seen that in 2 German Grand Prix then for Maverick Vinales.
Couldn't see any fluid spilling out of it as he was crawling into the pit lane there, so hopefully he got away with that one. Here's Brad Binder though, who I said Binder is now firmly on the rear wheel of Luca Marini's Mini BR46 Ducati. This is now a battle for the final podium position.
Yeah, coming right into that battle is Zarco there, the number 5 in P5 over the line. Jorge Martin continues his relentless charge at the front of this race. He's just done a more personal best lap at 1:21.300. And again, he's next closest to his chief rival in terms of pace. He's Johan Zarco, who himself did a 1:21.32. So Zarco very, very quickly. We're trying to find out a way through. But a repeat of yesterday's really. Martin versus Bagnaia at the front. There's better second launches it late on the inside of Miller in the first corner. Then we've got that battle between Marini, Binder and Zarco unfolding again, just as it was in yesterday's sprint, albeit for 4th yesterday.
I was just about to say, actually, there's a real queue building up behind Jack Miller, so that's an important move from Marco Bezzecchi to try and get clear of all of that. As Johan Zarco looked like he was actually slightly right there in the background. Zarco's lost a bit of time on this lap. He's lost a quarter of a second to the pair up ahead of him, but Binder feels as if he's got podium pace here. If he can get through Marini quickly, he might well be able to latch on to the leading pair. We ride on board with Binder down the hill through the Ralph Baldwin curve, and look how it closes in on Marini. Binder up to the inside. He's not allowing Marini to turn in. Binder able to get to the apex first, and the South African is up into the podium positions.
So Benny, you can just see that rear right-hand device squatting on the KTM as he tries to pick up the dry grip. He'll do the same now coming out this final corner. There's your live championship. It's getting better into that title race picture for Jorge Martin. He could be within striking distance, just 16 points behind Pecco Bagnaia as we head for another showdown over 37 points available next weekend in Assen. So now then, Binder. The gap between him and Bagnaia, second to third, was 1.6 seconds. Now the field have gone through the very loud pit lane. Let's go and get some thoughts. So, Simon, you spotted what happened to Maverick Vinales. Aprilli, what did you see?
Well, we all saw smoke coming from the exhaust out the side, which comes from the front 2 cylinders of that V4. And I went and had a look. There's no fluids anywhere, so it's obviously something internal gone wrong. No danger for the riders.
Thanks for that, Simon. So, yeah, that's the best possible. There's no fluid leaking out of Maverick Vinales, the stricken RSGP. Scant consolation for him, though, as he goes to Assen, where we know he's very, very strong. Maverick Vinales is looking to try and steer his season back on course, back at the front. And Pecco Bagnaia is just starting to close Martin down a little bit. He's found nearly 0.2 of a second in the first 3 splits on this lap number 11.
Well, we know Jorge Martin can withstand pressure. He's only got a GP win so far. He was under constant pressure from Joan Mir, wasn't he, back in Austria in 2021. He did give away a likely victory in Malaysia last year from a more comfortable lead than this. But this is a different kind of challenge that Jorge Martin is going to be faced with here. Of course, he's so good at leading races from the front, setting a pace that no one can match him with. But what can he do in a bitter battle? Is Bagnaia going to try and force Jorge Martin to fight for this and make sure that Martin doesn't pull away at the front?
Marini's got it all on here, not just to hang on to that 4th place fight for the podium, because Zarco behind him on the previous lap was 0.3 of a second faster. Zarco's charge continues. We're on board now with Marini through this high-speed turn 7. This is where Marc Marquez had that sickening high side this morning. High-speed barrel roll through the gravel trap. That's why the former King of the Saxon Ring, the undisputed King of the Saxon Ring, sidelined from this Grand Prix. He withdrew pre-race. There is Binder then now. When he passed it, here comes Zarco and his beloved turn number 11. How many overtakes in his Grand Prix career has Johan Zarco made there? It was true on Binder yesterday in the sprint. He made a hard move, a fair move off Miller early on. This time, his latest victim through the Baldwin curve is Luca Marini. I don't think there's any corner on the Grand Prix calendar that Johan Zarco loves more than the Baldwin curve. Turn number 11 here in Assassini. He's up in the P4.
Yeah, with a slight exception of what happened to him in qualifying yesterday when he went down there. But other than that, it is the signature move, isn't it, for the Frenchman? Through now into 4th place. And what's positive for Zarco is that in the time that Brad Binder got passed to the time that Zarco made the move, he's not really made any progress up the road. Binder was only 0.6 of a second further up the road. This is the battle for 8th place as Aleix Espargaro knows he needs to make hay in the first half of this Grand Prix before he comes into grief with that soft rear tyre. Fabio Quartararo potentially is already suffering. He's lost that battle with Bastianini, and his fellow Fabio Di Gianantonio has now gone through it, and Quartararo down to 12th.
We could see this coming in terms of Marini's lap times, couldn't we? How quickly Binder and Zarco got on his rear tyre and then eased on through. I say ease, that's not really easing, is it, when you're flat out in 5th gear through the scary drop down the hill, turn number 11. Clean as a whistle, though, from Johan Zarco. On that lap 12, Marini was in the 122s, really struggling for pace as we come towards the halfway point of this German Grand Prix. There's still an awful long way to go, isn't there? Jorge Martin, it's going to be all about his focus, all about his concentration, and all about how he can manage this gap back to the world champion, Pecco Bagnaia, who's going to throw all at it. On board then now is Zarco, looking back to Marini. The gap between Martin and Bagnaia to start lap number 14 was just over 4/10 of a second.
Binder has no answer to the pair up ahead of him, despite having empty tarmac up ahead of him for 2 or 3 laps now. Binder unable to get out of the high 121s. It is a 2-horse race at the front. Martin and Bagnaia in the mid-21s. Binder did a 21.9 last time round, coming under a bit of pressure now from Zarco, who's a couple of tenths quicker. And Marco Bezzecchi is now starting to loom on the rear tyre of his teammate Luca Marini, so the Muni VR46 teammates could be soon set for a battle over 5th place.
Looks visibly on this current lap, doesn't it, like Bagnaia is starting to really take chunks of time, and Martini has. My old eyes aren't deceiving me, are they? As now the gap through sector 2 drops to under 4/10 of a second. He's really now just starting to put that pressure on the shoulders of Jorge Martin, just to see if he will crack. Bagnaia has got the more experience in MotoGP, hasn't he, of managing the tyres over the longer race distance, as Martin drops down into the braking zone for turn number 12. And once again, you can clearly see on your screens with the vision there, Bagnaia now he's going to be a couple of tenths, if that, behind Martin at the conclusion of this lap 14. That could be a decisive lap 14 in this 30-lap German Grand Prix.
So a real contrast for the two Prima Pro-Manager candidates, with Martin's coming under pressure, but Johan Zarco, surely it's only a matter of time before he moves up into the podium positions. He is now all over the back of Brad Binder, just 2/10 of a second separating them over the line. Brad Binder, better beware the turn 11 move this time around.
Through the Omega corner then, 2nd gear, about 85 kilometres an hour. You've just got to be so careful here on the throttle as we ride on board with numero uno in P2 right now, Pecco Bagnaia. Just here, quite they're just feathering that throttle to keep the momentum, keep the rolling speed through turn 6 and 7, through the high speed 4th gear turn number 7. There's a lot of time here, a lot on the mind of Jorge Martin to try and hold on to this German Grand Prix victory, his first in nearly 2 full years. Through turn number 10 we go, and now they'll bank it hard right. 50, just clicks 50 there, doesn't he? On that change of direction, Bagnaia, as they now sweep down through the Waldman curve. It looks like there's a bit of an air and never bit of inevitability about this one, Lewis, because now look at this, Bagnaia, he can almost reach out and touch the back of Jorge Martin's Ducati GP23, can't he? Looks like a matter of time before Bagnaia's going to hit the front here.
Well, there's a new air of confidence around Jorge Martin, but it's about to be put to the ultimate test by the reigning world champion, who now shadows the man who is his nearest championship rival. Of course, at this stage, 21 points separating them, so it's a potential 10-point swing here, depending on which of the two gets across the finish line first. Johan Zarco further back, lost a couple of tenths on the last lap to Brad Binder, so Binder's been able to get himself a little bit of breathing space on that last lap over Johan Zarco. The gap between the two is around half a second in favour of Binder.
Yeah, you can just see the amount of shot there coming through the Omega corner. Zarco then still lapping in those high 121s as Bagnaia and Martin drop down through turn 7. It's short and tight, this section circuit, but some spectacular undulation, the big features on this 3.6 kilometre layout. This is coming down through turn 6. We just talked about Johan Zarco's lethal, isn't he? Ruthless going through that turn number 11. He's a joy to behold going through that corner. What have you made of his weekend so far through turn 11?
Yeah, that overtake, he did it yesterday on Brad. It wasn't quite as clean. He's perfected it now. I was just as impressed yesterday when he did it like 4th gear through there on the left side. If we get another onboard, you'll spot it. It's so fast. He's getting on the gas a little early so he can turn in a little bit early, overtake. But the tricky thing is to stay on the track. On the exit still, and he manages it really well. I'm going to say bravery from a rider's point of view, big respect.
Yeah, he's got the bravery and the skill, hasn't he? No question. As Johan Zarco, as the Mooney VR46 boys are trying to engage through the first corner. Bezzecchi was briefly up into 5th place ahead of Marini, but he just went in a little bit hot, and Marini took the place back. Quick check on Jack Miller, who after leading the early part of this Grand Prix has dropped back to 7th place. Alex Marquez has just taken 8th from Aleix Espargaro. You'd imagine that Aleix Espargaro and Fabio Quartararo are starting to have some, not issues, but certainly dealing with deteriorating grip from that soft Michelin rear tyre. Quartararo still circulating down in 12th place. He just can't get close to Fabio D'Antonio's Gresini Ducati.
Quartararo's got a queue of riders behind him. He's got Oliveira, Augusto Fernandez and Frankie Morbidelli, Quartararo's teammate, right behind him. They're battling for the final 4 points positions at the moment. That just tells you the depths that Yamaha have sunk to in recent times. Back with the race leaders, back with the championship leaders. You can see that they're putting a bit of distance between themselves and Marco Bezzecchi in the title chase as it stands at the moment. But this is about much more than just 25 points. This is about Jorge Martin trying to put a marker down to Pecco Bagnaia to say that I am a genuine threat to the #1 on the points of your Ducati this season. Can he hang on? Can Luca Marini hang on from Bezzecchi? Last time around, Bezzecchi went into turn 1. Can he make it a bit cleaner this time?
Well, I certainly hope he does. You can see the chattering on the front end of that Mooney VR46 Ducati. This time around, though, he has made it through. Marini just couldn't turn in through that tight second gear first corner. Feels like, doesn't it? We said 3 racing. This is just the first instalment of a Bagnaia-Martin showdown for the title, and potentially a big rivalry. And into the Ducati squad rivalry in MotoGP. Jorge Martin just issuing another reminder how angry he was, frustrated he was to be overlooked for that seat alongside Bagnaia. They could have been teammates, couldn't they, in 2023? Ducati not plump for Enea Bastianini, but he's channeling that disappointment into a big positive right now, isn't he, Martin, as he still holds on to an advantage through turn number 11. We're just into the second half of this German Grand Prix. He's nearly half a second clear of Bagnaia, about a 10th faster in that third split. There is Paolo Ciabatti looking on. He's the only member of the Ducati Truro senior management here this weekend. They'll be liking what he sees, be passing our wishes for a speedy recovery to Davide Tardozzi on crutches in Mugello last weekend. Fracturing his ankle, he's on crutches. Gigi Dall'Igna opting to skip this Grand Prix, hoping that Johan Zarco can find a way through on Brad Binder to make it a 4th all-Ducati podium in the Grand Prix this year so far.
Good response from Martin on that last lap. He got down to a 1:21.366, a quarter of a second quicker than Bagnaia behind him. Bagnaia will want to try and hold this momentum that Martin is carrying through the recent races. Of course, it's a momentum which is going to close it even further in the World Championship as it stands at the moment. Binder maintains that 0.3 of a second buffer over Zarco. Fabio Quartararo's woes deepen, by the way, further back down the field. He has now lost out to Miguel Oliveira. It drops to 13th now.
Won't be surprised at the end of this Grand Prix if Quartararo has not been in 23s. He's already in the mid-122s, suffering with that fading grip on that soft rear tyre. You've got to take the moment. This has been a phenomenal job. Yellow flags are out in sections. Binder's gone down. Brad Binder, you can see his name tumbling down the timer screens. And that's a big one, isn't it? Oh, he looks really, really groggy. He looks really, really groggy, doesn't he, there? He'd be getting a standing 8 count if he was in a boxing ring right now with Brad Binder. So slipping through the grasp of the South African as a Saxon ring podium here. And we are potentially on course for an all-Ducati roster again here in Germany, because Binder's blunder puts Zarco on the podium.
Ducati top 5 now in this Grand Prix, of course, with Bezzecchi and Marini behind Zarco too. That leaves Jack Miller as the sole KTM, and Brad Binder, who at one point looked like a genuine title contender. That's faded somewhat, hasn't it, as we see him now walking away. He's gone down through those fast left-handers in the middle part of the lap. Now we run a ball, and this is coming through turn 9, isn't it? He's already wide there, and he just has to dump it in the gravel trap.
It looked like he lost the front. There was something up to there going into the corner, wasn't it? And then he just went careering into the gravel trap there. He's really, really groggy on his feet there. Proper barrel roll, washing machine job, wasn't it, there for Binder? Simon, some thoughts?
Yeah, guys, I actually think he lost the rear. I think the side grip of the rear tyres dropped off. He's turned in, it's come around. He's had to stand up, and then he can't make the corner.
Yeah, thanks for that, Simon. Brad Binder That was a big one. High-speed crash that was pitching in there into that turn number 8, third gear, nearly 150 kilometres an hour. Ducati then at the moment on course. Last weekend in Mugello, the celebrations were sparked when they took a first ever all top 4. Could be even better 1 week later. The first ever Ducati all top 5 in the MotoGP World Championship. I think it was this week as well, the 20th anniversary of their very first Premier Class victory in the hands of Loris Capirossi, still very much a prominent member of this MotoGP paddock. There are your top 2 men at the moment. It's Martin versus Bagnaia for the win. They're a country mile clear of Zarco, who in turn has a very lonely right to third place as it stands right now. He's 2 seconds clear of Marco Bezzecchi in 4th.
If Jack Miller wasn't there, it'd be an old Ducati top 7 in this Grand Prix with Marc Marquez and Bastianini just behind him. Of course, this is a circuit that Ducati haven't won at in 15 years. Their hopes look pretty high for an end to that losing streak this time, but which Ducati rider is going to take those 25 points is still far from certain. Bagnaia closing right back in again on the back of Martin.
Same hard compound front tyre, same medium compound rear tyre, pretty much the same motorcycle underneath Martin and Bagnaia. This is all down to the guy that's twisting the throttle here, isn't it? And now Bagnaia dropping down through the 50, 60 left. Here he comes. He's lined this one up, and Bagnaia decides this is the crunch time. This is his moment in this German Grand Prix. For the first time then, he hits the front, the world champion in P1.
Is that the decisive moment on lap 21 of this German Grand Prix? Can Martin fight back immediately? He gets a pretty good run there out of turn 13. You kind of feel Martin needs to strike back immediately. He can't allow Bagnaia to get into his rhythm, but Bagnaia so good on the brakes into turn 1.
Yeah, not giving an inch there, was he? Not giving a millimetre to Martin to try and attack him, but an immediate counter-attack move into the first corner. What have you got then now? Jorge Martin, the world champion, hits the front then. 9 laps to go here. We're in the phase of the Grand Prix where rear tyre management is going to be fundamental, as Bagnaia just been watching Jorge Martin for these first 20 laps or so, working out his strengths and weaknesses, and crucially just keeping an eye on how Martin's rear tyre is holding up, how Martin's rear tyre is behaving, and Bagnaia feels like that was his time to hit the front, and now he will get his head down and try and stretch away from Jorge Martin.
The question we're about to have answered is, was Martin on the absolute limit leading the Grand Prix, or was he himself trying to save something? We're riding on board with the man in second place now as he drops downhill out of the Ralph Waldman curve through the third sector. It's just 0.2 of a second between Bagnaia and Martin. So Martin is hanging on for the moment, but Bagnaia is in the place that he loves to be. He loves to be the race leader. He loves to set the pace out front. This was what we saw in Mugello last weekend, and Martin couldn't last the pace.
This will feel very, very sweet, folks. So this will be revenge in many respects if he does take the chequers flag first. What happened to him here 1 year ago, Pecco Bagnaia, when that costly mistake while trying to pursue Fabio Quartararo, who thought he wrecked his World Championship hopes here last season. Right here, wasn't it, in the race 1 year ago, where he had that tunnel and slipped 91 points behind the Frenchman before launching the greatest comeback in Grand Prix history to win Ducati's first Premier Class title since Casey Stoner in 2007. The halcyon days roll on, don't they? The glory days roll on here for Ducati as they're on course for a historic top 5. Who will be taking it though from the top step of the podium? That's not decided, is it? Because Bagnaia, he can't break away from Jorge Martin. What will be happening here to Martin's front tyres? Well, that will be coming into reckoning too, without the clear air ahead of him behind Bagnaia's back to Ducati. There'll be a spike in that front tyre temperature, which will affect the turning, it will affect the handling and the braking of that Prima Pramac machine.
So you feel that's why Martin will want to try and get back ahead of Bagnaia as soon as possible to try and regain that lead. Quartararo has plummeted now behind his teammate Morbidelli. They're 13th and 14th. A little bit of a show at the wheel there from Martin, but in terms of the battle for the victory, encouraging as a neutral. Bagnaia has had the lead now for a couple of clear laps, but he's not been able to shake off the number 89 behind him. We're coming on to lap 24 of 30 now. 7 remain.
Yeah, this is building up to a grandstand finish, isn't it, here now? And Martin is going to get some slipstream behind Bagnaia. He can't, though, cut to the inside line. Bagnaia is just too good. So precise and hard on the brakes, isn't he? This is Bagnaia's forte. He was asked about the contrasting styles, the way they approach riding this dominant Ducati in 2023. And he said Martin is better at turning, particularly around the Sachsenring circuit, but Bagnaya's clear advantage. All the Ducati riders say Bagnaia is the guy that's superior in the braking zone on that GP23. Well, he's going to need to have that upper hand here of his knee to keep Martin at bay. Quickly down to you, Simon.
Yeah, the thing I'm worrying about now is you might have noticed how Pecco tried to not stay behind for too long close. He either got close, had to go, or drop back, keep his front tyre in the right temperature, and then come back and attack. I'm worried for Jorge that not doing that might put him in the danger area with his front tyre, not being able to stop, or even worse, losing the front.
Martin's going for it on board, thanks to that Simon. They're side by side, aren't they, in the braking zone for turn number 12? Well, we've got our answer. Jorge Martin then back at the front. This is where Pecco Bagnaia took the lead at the end of lap 21. Couple of laps later though, and Martin says, well, you can have some payback. Here we go then, Martin versus Bagnaia. There are going to be 6 laps to go here. This is building up to be a stunner in the Saxon ring. Jorge Martin back at the front.
Your move, Pecco. Now it's you who has to do the chasing as Martin goes a little bit wide there, but he's able to bring it back to a late apex through turn 1. Now downhill into 2. They'll drop into the Omega of 3. Now Bagnaia is the one behind Martin. We have 6 laps of this remain, and everything we've seen so far suggests this is going to go right down to the wire.
Fantastic action this, isn't it, between Martin and Bagnaia. If it stays as is, the gap in the championship will be down to 16 points heading to Assen next weekend. This has been intriguing, it's been fascinating, and there's still 5.5 laps to go here in the Saxon ring. Jorge Martin desperate for his first Grand Prix victory of the season. He's done it twice so far in the sprints on Saturday afternoons. What has Pecco Bagnaia got left then? He's so good towards the end of these races, isn't he, Pecco Bagnaia? And now, of course, throwing the doubt in his mind about front tyre temperature is Martin's move right here on that previous lap.
Further back, just a quick note on what's happening between Zarco, Bezzecchi, Marini. Bezzecchi is starting to close in a little bit on Zarco. He pulled 3/10 back last time around. We were expecting Zarco to come on strong at the end of the race. He might actually end up coming under a little bit of pressure. Bezzecchi, who of course is 3rd in the World Championship, hasn't given up on a podium yet.
5 to go then here in the Saxon ring, and it's a 3/10 of a second advantage for Martin over Bagnaia. He drops that right leg, drops anchor, stops that Prima Pama Ducati in this tight first sector of the Saxon ring. They drop down the hill, they're now 2nd gear through the Omega corner now, turn number 3. Martin standing firm in the brilliant pressure being put in from Pecco Bagnaia. So a quick check on that gap between Zarco and Bezzecchi. 1.5 seconds it was through the first sector. Zarco tries to make it another double podium for Prima Pramac race. That would be the 3rd race in a row, wouldn't it, if they did that in Le Mans, Mugello. Jorge Martin and Zarco fighting for 3 consecutive podiums in 3 Grand Prix for the first time in their career. Brad Binder goes to the Circuit Medical Centre for a check-up after his high-speed get-off at turn number 8. It certainly looked like he was a little bit dazed and confused as he got to his feet on the gravel track.
The riders on the software tyre are really suffering. We've already covered Quartararo's problems. He's back in 14th, but Aleix Spargaro, he's in the high 22s now. He lost a place to Fabio Di Gianantonio on the next lap. He's now going to come under pressure from Miguel Oliveira as well. So those who are on the software tyre are starting to pay the price.
Through the final corner we go. Lap 26 of 30, about to be in the books. It's Jorge Martin that leads it by just under 2/10 of a second. Nothing between them in terms of lap times on that lap 26. A 1:21.7 from Martin, a 1:21.6, slightly faster was the world champion on that previous circuit. Zarco just keeping Bezzecchi at bay, putting that battle for the final place on the podium. In fact, Zarco did retaliate on that lap 26. He stayed in those high 1:21s while Bez behind him dipped back into the 22s. Bezzecchi 1.6 seconds away from Zarco, now in 3rd.
Yeah, the other battle to look out for there on track, besides the battle that we're all glued to for the lead, is between Miller and Marini. They're battling for 5th, but almost he can't reach out and touch the rear tyre there of Jorge Martin Bagnaia. We've seen the main moves come down the hill from 11 and into the right-hander of 12. Bagnaia looks like he's close enough to launch another counter-attack on Martin.
3.5 to go then here on the Saxon ring. We can almost reach out and touch Jorge Martin's exhaust pipes coming on a Ducati. Here he goes in. He's got the corner speed. He gets blocked off. Coming through on the curbs. Bagnaia and Martin. Martin chops Bagnaia's nose off down the bottom of the hill into turn number 12. Bagnaia then He'll have 3 laps to go here. 39 corners to try and work her way through on Martin. But with 3 laps to go here in the Sachsenring, it is Martin that still has the advantage over the line.
Martin positioned his bike well there. He didn't give Bagnaia a sniff of the inside line as they dropped down the hill. He hooked the left-hand side of the circuit, left Bagnaia with the option of either running into the back of Martin or backing out of it. Bagnaia chose the wise option.
Yeah, I think Bezzecchi's running out of steam in that fight for the podium. At 1:22.4 for him on that last lap means he's slipped now very, very quickly, 2 seconds behind Zarco. So Zarco should be locked in and safe for a 3rd place. Another podium going the way of the Frenchman. Bagnaia, again, he has found a way to make that Ducati GP23 turn better in this 2nd sector, hasn't he? He's so close to the rear tyre of Martin, particularly as they drop down through this high-speed turn number 7. Surely he's going to try and line up that move through that fast 5th gear swing through turn number 11, although Martin's got great drive coming through turn number 8, and that might break Bagnaia. He's not been close to busy to make that switch through 11 now.
Zarco will have more than an interest in what's going on up here between Martin and Bagnaia. If anything goes wrong between these two, Zarco's in a position to take advantage, but Martin's had a very good 28 lap here. He's been able to pull out a 1/4 of a second, which doesn't sound like much, but with so little time remaining, we're about to start the penultimate lap. That is a big enough advantage as Bagnaia closes in on the brakes into 13.
This is what you want to see in the MotoGP World Championship, isn't it? A potential last lap showdown between 2 of the fastest riders in the world, the top 2 men in the World Championship coming into this German Grand Prix. Look how defensive and tight Jorge Martin goes on the inside. It's the cat, he snakes left, he snakes right, but somehow he does cut it to a late apex into the 1st corner.
Oh, I was worried for Martin there. He was defending fresh air down the start finish straight as Bagnaia again nearly runs into the back of Martin. Martin is riding around the Sachsenring circuit thinking about Bagnaia rather than thinking what's ahead of it.
Well, he's like a rolling roadblock right now, isn't he? Pecco Bagnaia inches away, millimetres away from Martin's rear tyre as well. They sweep, power the Ducatis down through turn number 7. A lap and a half to go here in what has been a nail-biting and enthralling and gripping German Grand Prix. What is going to unravel in the next sort of 2.5 minutes or so as we track Jorge Martin, your race leader, through turn number 10 he goes. They'll flick it now hard right, 5th gear, and again Martin so good. He gets great drive on the hill coming out of 8, that Bagnaia can't get close enough to swoop on his inside through 11.
It looks like through the slower twisty stuff at the start of the lap, Bagnaia is quicker than Martin. Through the faster corners, the left-handers, the leaders down to the waterfall, Martin is quicker. Bagnaia getting into a good position now to line up Martin. He's going to have a good run onto the home straight.
They touch coming through the final corner. Front tyre on rear tyre for Bagnaia and Martin, and that could be key. That could be the decisive moment. Pecco Bagnaia, contact there with Martin going into turn number 13. Now then, he has been able to regroup. He was fortunate there, maybe not to have that front end wipe out from underneath him. He stays on board the factory Ducati. Has he got anything left there now as they drop through turn number 3 for the final time? Martin on the brink of a brilliant 2nd career victory in MotoGP, but the world champion throwing it all on the line here as he seeks revenge here in the Sachsenring.
He needs a big final lap here. He needs the last lap of a champion, does Pecco Bagnaia. He's got 0.3 of a second to try and close down after the 1st sector. As we now come through the 2nd, Martin has lost a 10th to Bagnaia. This is far from over yet.
How much risk will Bagnaia go for those extra 5 points in the World Championship? He knows now if he launches it, if he throws it at the scenery, Jorge Martin will actually seize the World Championship lead. We're coming down now to the final 2 corners. Jorge Martin has what, half a dozen bike lengths on Pecco Bagnaia. He tries to close in on the brakes. How's he going to make a move in the final corner? Martin on the inside line, coming up to down this final corner, turn number 13. He goes defensive, and surely Jorge Martin has got this one covered. Although here comes Pecco Bagnaia trying to pick up some drive grip. They come online side by side. Oh, inches in it. How close was that? But it's Jorge Martin who takes a Sachsenring stunner. Absolutely incredible late drama here in the German Grand Prix. Martin takes the win by just 0.06 of a second. His first MotoGP win in his last 35 races. It is the dream double in Germany for the Martinator. The sprint win on Saturday, and he takes a brilliant win in the main Grand Prix, resisting almighty pressure from the world champion Pecco Bagnaia. Johann Zarco does take 3rd place, Bezzecchi Marini 4th and 5th in what is an historic all Ducati top 5. What a race that was. Absolutely incredible post-race celebrations. Jorge Martin takes, well, he's run out of energy, hasn't he? He's absolutely drained. He does the victory roll. He looks to the skies. What a race that was. Over the finish line, what, half a bike length between Martin and Bagnaia. Pecco Bagnaia's in the room. That's contact, isn't it, at the final corner on the second to last lap. But this man stood firm in some of the biggest pressure he's ever faced in his Grand Prix career. Jorge Martin wins a classic in the Sachsenring.
What a Grand Prix that was. 30 laps of edge-of-the-seat drama. As we're already getting a celebration taking place there. He's going to light the fireworks. It was an explosive race between Martin and Bagnaia. That is what does to the World Championship. Bagnaia's lead is cut to 16 points over Jorge Martin. Any questions we had about Jorge Martin's MotoGP Championship credentials, I think they've all been answered over the last 24 hours.
Superb job by that man on your screen. No wonder he's soaking up the atmosphere, soaking up these very special scenes. Let's go down Simon in pit lane.
I've got Paolo Ciabatti with me. Paolo, both Ducati riders, but I've got to say, Pecco, he was second, but what a beautiful job he did managing it all there and doing it, you know, right to the end.
Yeah, well, it was just an incredible race. Obviously, it was almost a photo finish on the start-finish line. I know Pecco tried hard. I think Martino rode a great race. Good for Ducati. We are, again, free on the podium. I think 5 in the top 5. So, great result for the company.
Congratulations.
What a day for Ducati, but what a day for this young man. He comes to kiss the camera. That was one of the best Grand Prix wins of this young man's career, and he's had a few, hasn't he? The 25-year-old Spaniard, that is a win number 12 in his career, second in MotoGP, but to withstand the onslaught that came, not just from a factory Ducati rider, but from the reigning world champion, Pecco Bagnaia. You do just wonder, be fascinated to hear what he thinks about that last corner contact on that second to last lap, which dropped him out of the clutches of Jorge Martin. It just meant he wasn't quite close enough. It's an emotional day, the tears are flowing as he does complete the double here. What a weekend. 37-point haul for Jorge Martin. Weekends don't get much better than that, do they? As he takes up the atmosphere of nearly 100,000 fans here at the German Grand Prix. Can't quite believe it, can he? Simon, back down to you. So Martin then it is that takes the victory by just 600ths of a second. That can't be too far away from being one of the closest finishes in MotoGP history, can it? What a race that was. It was half a bike length in it, not quite in the top 10 all-time closest Premier Class winning margins, but it was mighty, mighty close. When all said and done, not the winning wanted to avenge the disappointment of 1 year ago, but in the bigger picture of the championship, he almost toppled off the side of that Ducati there nearly.
We've already seen Jorge Martin rolling around on the tarmac, so here's how close we got. This will be the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. Look how close that is as Martin just gives Bagnaia no room at all. He made sure that he couldn't take that inside line down the hill. That was the crucial moment for Martin, one of many in that race. You have to say, tactically, Jorge Martin positioned his bike perfectly. He fended Bagnaia off at the crucial spots of the circuit where he was potentially going to come at risk. Did worry coming into the final corner of the final lap, whether by defending into the Queckenberg corner, it might just give Bagnaia the run up the hill to the finish line. But the finish line came just in time, and Martin took that victory by just 64 thousandths of a second.
Well, it's usually Marc Marquez that brings the magic to the Sachsenring, but this time it's Martin sprinkling some magic over this historic German Grand Prix venue as he celebrates with the marshals. What a weekend, fantastic weekend. Nice rolling stopping into the Parfum. Let the wild celebrations commence then for Pramac Ducati. First independent team ride to win the Sachsenring since Max Biaggi way back in 2004. That's what MotoGP is all about. That was MotoGP at its very, very best. Gloriously sunny summer day, nearly 100,000 fans packed into the grandstands, and an absolute classic. Best race of the season so far, without any question. It went all the way down to the wire, and by what, a half a bike length. Ducati versus Ducati, Martin versus Bagnaia. The Spaniard takes the spoils in the Saxon ring, and it is very much game on, isn't it, in terms of this championship scrap. 16 points, split the pair of them, heading to the Dutch TT in Assen next weekend. A nice embrace there. Fonzi Nieto, the rider coach in that Prima Pramac Racing camp, and Gino Borsoi, he'll be ecstatic. The third race in a row then, Le Mans Mugello, and now here in the Saxon ring, that Prima Pramac Ducati have had 2 bites in Parc Ferme at the end of our feature race. Credit to Johan Zarco, who fought hard, back-to-back podiums in the Saxon ring for him, of course.
An embrace between the 2 riders who look like they're going to dispute this year's World Championship, and its course going to be fascinating both on a Saturday and a Sunday, because we are looking at the 2 leading lights this year in the sprint. Both Martin and Bagnaia have taken multiple victories in the sprint. Well, Jorge Martin has answered the big question today: can he take it to Bagnaia over full race distance? Not only did he do that, but he beat him this afternoon. Marco Bezzecchi, 4th place for him. Thumbs up, he'll take that after what again has been a tricky weekend, largely down to a bit of misfortune in qualifying with yellow flags, which denied him the potential front row. He's not out of the title chase by any means. He's 34 points off the pace of Bagnaia, but the growing threat is certainly coming from Martin.
He had to work hard for that podium this afternoon, didn't he, Johan Zarco? But his early championship chase builds momentum, keeps momentum. He's 4th in the rankings. Another day to remember, isn't it, for Prima Pramac Racing? Both men in the podium again. Gino Borsoi with Simon.
You know, incredible scenes down here with all your team members. Tell us what you think of your riders.
I'm so happy, honestly. I have no words. I have to say thank you to all my guys. They did an amazing job again on another race to ride on podium today, victory of the long race. I'm so proud about them. Well, I'm a bit lucky also to be here because it's a perfect season for us. So we have to continue like this. Never give up because we know the season is so long, so keep calm now and work for the next race.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job by Prima Pramac Racing. What a day to remember, not just for the Ducati lead independent team, but for Ducati in general. 7 days after the historic first all top 4. It's not only an all top 5 for the first time, but the 8 Ducatis that are on the MotoGP grid this season were inside the top 9. Only Jack Miller in 6th place on the factory KTM, the non-Ducati inside that top 9. A soft tyre gamble for Fabio Quartararo and Aleix Espargaro. Well, we feared it might backfire. We feared that Quartararo would drop into the 23s. He did. He limped home 13th, 25 seconds behind Jorge Martin. What a humbling experience that is. And he won the Grand Prix here last year. The other rider that went for the soft rear tyres was Aleix Espargaro on the factory Aprilia. Got even worse for Aleix. Aggressive at the start, he was as high as 5th, wasn't he, on that RSGP? But his last lap, with no grip whatsoever left with that soft rear, a 1:26.9. He missed the point in 16th place. 3 podiums in a row, though, for Johan Zarco. He's in Parc Ferme with Simon.
John, what a ride, having to come back through and making overtakes on the fastest corners. Impressive. Tell us what you think of that one.
Good race again. I knew the pace for the podium was possible. Clearly, I expected also to be fast enough to be close to the victory. But once again, start was good. I didn't get any problems on the start, but Bezzecchi was strong on the brake. And it's a little bit my weak point. So I've lost a bit of time, but quickly I could get a strong pace. Then Brad was going quite fast, and I tried to control as well as possible and control my rear tire behind Brad, thinking that then I can get an advantage. Then he did a mistake, and I was alone in 3rd position. And not possible to come back on the first 2 guys. They were too fast. But at least I could fight, and Bezzecchi was coming, but I could hold a little bit this gap of 1.5 seconds. So a nice podium. Still some little things to improve or fight for victory, but improvement are there. So I'm pretty happy to confirm the speed of yesterday.
Great job. Congratulations.
Awesome job by the 32-year-old Frenchman. We're about to see a late scare. This is on the very last lap for Zarco into the first corner where he had his dramas with Marc Marquez on Friday. Whoa, that was almost a disaster, wasn't it? Losing the front into that first corner on the very final lap. That would have been late Arte for the Frenchman and Prima Pramac Racing. Thankfully, those able to gather it back up. What a race it was by the world champion, though. Second best, though, today in a classic in the Sachsenring. He's with Simon.
Pecco, what an awesome rider, awesome battle. It looked like you were managing everything so well. Did that touch damage your attack right at the end?
Jorge demonstrated also today that was really strong. I tried. We improved the compare yesterday. We were competitive in the last laps. I was gaining and gaining, but wasn't enough to be in the front. I tried in the second last lap, 2 laps to go, but I touched him. Then to recover was a bit on the limit and was too far. So happy with the second position. I gave my maximum, and let's move on to us.
Huge congratulations.
Nothing to be ashamed of. He fought a great fight, didn't he, today, Pecco Bagnaia? He sees his World Champions League shrink to 16 points. This was the key moment, trying to find a way through. Look at that, he's pretty fortunate there with lean angle as well, going through that turn number 13. That contact did put him on the floor. That could have been a disaster for Pecco Bagnaia for the second year in a row here in the Sachsenring, but that just gave, didn't it, Martin, that a little bit of a breather at the front of that Grand Prix. Here was the checkered flag, over the line they come. That's what it looks like when the top 2 men at the end of a thrilling MotoGP battle are covered by just 600ths of a second. Can't wait for Assen next weekend as we get the next instalment of Bagnaia versus Martin in this championship chase, which is getting fascinating, isn't it? What a weekend, though, for this man. The Springtime Grand Prix winner in Germany, Jorge Martin with Simon.
Jorge, the double in Germany. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so emotional moment. After almost 2 years fighting for it, finally it arrived. It was a tough race. Pecco was pushing so hard. I had some issues at the middle of the race with the rear tire, so I just tried to manage. To be in front was my target. Even when he passed me, I tried to keep the front, and yeah, the last 2 laps just trying to push the maximum. I think Pecco had something else, but maybe I could save a little bit more the tire at the beginning of the race. I'm super happy. Focus on the next ones. This is only the first step, hopefully, and we are getting there and closer, so this is the main thing. Thank you to my people, my family that supported me a lot last season, and we are ready for everything.
Awesome, congratulations.
Fighting talk. He's ready for the title fight, isn't he? He just has that #1 finger there, doesn't he? There was some close battles throughout, wasn't there? He led until lap 21 when Pecco Bagnaia got through. 3 laps later, though, Jorge Martin wrestled his Prima Pramac Ducati back to the front of that German Grand Prix. And then the late contact, what with 14 corners of that epic battle remaining, that was vitally admitted there. He felt like Bagnaia had the superior speed. That's why he had to block and go defensive. A job he could not have done any better. Here was your early race leader, wasn't it? The electric start, as always, on the factory KTM for Jack Miller. 6th place, nearly 12 seconds away at the checker flag. Not what he came for, not what he wanted. But amazingly, he was the only non-Ducati to finish inside that top 9, with Gian Antonio in 9th place, is Luca Marini. He was 5th, 6th in the World Championship now for Marini. That's where he started that German Grand Prix. Of course, he was in that podium battle, wasn't he, in the early part of the race before he slipped right out of contention. Finished over 3 seconds, actually, behind Marco Bezzecchi. You've got to fear another victim of the fast-fading grip.
Yeah, Luca Marini, good weekend's work overall, wasn't it? 2nd on the grid, his best ever qualifying, and then 4th in the sprint, followed by 5th in Sunday's race. So Luca Marini in very good shape. We heard from Gino Borsoi earlier on in the broadcast following Pramac Ducati's 1-3. They are now 38 points clear in the Teams Championship for Prima Pramac Racing. That's off Mooney VR46 Ducati. Ducati teams 1st, 2nd and 3rd now in the Teams Championship, just underlining the strength of those Bologna bullets.
And come November, when this championship could be decided, well, it will be decided, of course, in Valencia, will this man create history? There's never been a non-factory rider to capture the MotoGP World Championship prize in 74 long years. History potentially beckoning for Jorge Martin. There's a lot of water to pass on the bridge though before we get to that moment, but he'll be enjoying without any question. He said on Thursday in the pre-event press conference, the best run of his MotoGP career. The last 3 sprints and the last 3 Grand Prix, Jorge Martin has found himself on the podium in the lot.
Hai provato?
Ma lì sei arrivato, hai coperto molto e ho dovuto chiudere.
Oh, 3 podi di fila insieme.
Sì, sì. Fra sprint e gara 6.
Ma tu sei, sì.
Anche te, cazzo.
Io faccio solo domenica.
Come partono,
Tu sei partito forte, Ho preso una linea, subito.
Sì, sì. Subito lo quarto?
Guarda qua, Alex,
Qua,
io ho passato qua, guarda.
Ah, Miller.
Bam.
Io Miller e Marini ancora, 2. Uguale ieri.
E poi guarda anche Alex, prova qui. Bam, mi ha spinto sulla gamba.
Adesso hai avuto... Olla!
E adesso c'ho un punto...
no.
Sì.
No.
Lì partiva.
Di una volta quasi.
Poi ti ho fatto qualcosa di grandissimo.
Forte,
Poi il ritmo a fine gara...
Sì.
Come passa? Ho provato a resistere, ho detto va caldo se resisto.
Pensavo incrociavi,
ma hai stretto molto, vedi?
Sì. Quest'ultimo giro?
Penultimo.
Si sente quando arriva uno?
Non me la sono sentita di entrare lì.
E qui con la
Qua quasi,
percorrenza,
tio.
Sì, ma guarda.
Oh, quando è stato quello? Ma quello è il penultimo.
E qua l'ultimo, forse?
Sì. No,
No.
ancora. Wow.
Dopo l'ultimo giro per tornare a prenderti tutte le cure.
No. Io ho spinto quel
E
giro.
questo è l'ultimo.
Lo sentivo del cazzo.
quasi.
Wow, puta madre.
Però meno giri il prossimo anno, per favore. 30 sono troppo.
Cazzo, 7 secondi al terzo. Wow.
Bello, bellissimo.
Vamos.
Pecco Bagnaia just saying there to Jorge Martin, that was a long draining thing, like makes it less laps please next season. Well, we don't want it to be less laps because that was a classic, fantastic German Grand Prix. Sadly we didn't see Marc Marquez battle for a 12th consecutive victory, but in his absence Jorge Martin and Pecco Bagnaia put on one spectacular show, didn't we, as the Liqui Moly Grand Prix of Germany podium celebrations get underway here at the Sachsenring.
Thanks to statistician Thomas Morcellino, that is the second closest finish in MotoGP at the Sachsenring. Only the 2003 tussle between Sete Gibert and Valentino Rossi was closer. John Zarco was the closest to the Titanic 2 at the top of the podium. Martin pipping Bagnaia to victory this afternoon. And who knows? By the time we get to Valencia in late November, will we look back at this afternoon at the Sachsenring as a crucial turning point in the battle for the World Championship? Is today the day where Jorge Martin really made that final step up? Of course, that one victory in 2021 at the Red Bull Ring. Now it's the Sachsenring for the Martinator. Gino Borsoi, who's so used to winning championships from his many years with Aspar, is he about to mastermind a MotoGP title charge with Prima Pramac Racing? Yet another victory then for Ducati on a day where their superiority at the moment in MotoGP couldn't be more clear. Armin Schuster, the Saxonian Minister of Sports, gives the third place prize to John Zarco. That podium finish is now in the last 3 Sunday feature Grand Prix, all in third place. Going to enter the ADAC Sport President. It's a second place for Pecco Bagnaia. Of course, all of his Sunday finishes so far this year had been wins. This time, though, he has to settle for second place, and George Viegas will hand over a second MotoGP Race Winners' Trophy to Jorge Martin. It's today the day that Jorge Martin confirmed himself as a championship contender. He wins a thriller at the Sachsenring.
What a weekend then for Jorge Martin, the double winner here in MotoGP.